This is Melanie Rudd, the founder of She Overcomes. She Overcomes educates and equips women to overcome the imposter syndrome while biohacking the cyclical planning, goal syncing, and lived experiences of the rhythms of our lives through our Becoming Bold Leaders 8-week training, as well as our goal syncing 4-week program. We help women optimize time, energy, creativity, and focus in business and in life. This is a recording from Metamorphosis, the She Overcomes Women's Conference. I hope you enjoy this podcast.
All right, so we are going to be diving into creating the community you crave. So I just want to take a moment to express a huge amount of gratitude for every single woman in this room, on this panel, at every single table. And I would love for each of you to just take a moment and look at each woman's face who is sharing a table with you. Aren't they so beautiful? Don't you just love them? So we are in community right now. This is our community for today and hopefully past today. And doesn't it feel good? Doesn't it feel just so much juicier? Imagine doing this event virtually. Wouldn't that have a whole different feel to it? It is so powerful to feel that close connection, that close sense of community. I am beyond grateful. I'm exploding with joy. So I'm gonna take a moment to introduce myself, and then I'm gonna have each of these amazing, talented, beautiful panelists introduce themselves, and then we're going to dive into creating this community and the importance of community and belonging. So my name's Melissa Paycheck. I'm the founder of the FM Wellness Collective. And we're a community of wellness practitioners dedicated to revolutionizing the way Fargo-Moorhead heals. And my background is in holistic nutrition and herbalism and wellness coaching and energy work. And I'm getting my master's in counseling, and I am a junkie for all the yummy wellness goodness. So my biggest value is community. And so I wanted to create the FM Wellness Collective because I wanted to be able to, experience all that is wellness in community through events, through just connecting over healing. It's so powerful. So, all right, I'm gonna pass the baton to you ladies if you wanna introduce yourself and share who you are and kind of a bit about your story.
All right, good morning. My name is Jenny Olson. Who am I? I am a mother with 3 young girls, husband Ryan here in town. I am in the middle of a transition, just wrapping up my role of having led the Microsoft Fargo campus the last few years, and I'm transitioning to a new role as a vice president at Concordia College, another place that I love dearly as my alma mater. So other than that, I'm a lot of fun, and I'm a great friend, and I love stuff like this.
Wow.
Yeah,
cool. So thrilled to be sitting next to you, Jenny. Yes. I'm Amber Blomberg. I'm the executive director of the Caring Foundation and Community Engagement at Blue Cross Blue Shield of North Dakota. I, too, am a mom of 3 daughters. In my role at Blue Cross, I've been there for 12 years. I have the opportunity to lead our volunteer program. I actually helped launch that in 2016. I lead all of our community outreach, and we also have a foundation as well, so a grant giving foundation, where I have the opportunity to meet with different nonprofits and community-based organizations all across the state, and we give out over $1 million to different community-based organizations across the state. So.
Hello, my name is Emma McIntyre. I am the development manager, that's my job title, for Folkways. If you're not familiar with Folkways, you might be more familiar with our programming. So we are the nonprofit responsible for the Red River Market, night bazaars, which you're welcome to attend this evening at Brewhalla, and Chris Kindle Market. We're a nonprofit that exists to combat loneliness and isolation by creating experiences where you belong, and generally free experiences for our community to participate in. Isolation is the highest it's ever been, and we believe our programs are a complement to solving the crisis of loneliness and isolation in the Midwest.
Good morning. My name is Crystal Dunham. I'm a mental health counselor here in North Dakota. I get to be a part of Valley Christian Counseling and Wellness. And so in my role as a counselor, I get to help people walk through tough things in their life. And I've found one of the most central things for people is being in community with people. It's one of the best protective factors we have. And so I'm excited to get to be here. I'm a mom of 2 kids. I love coffee, traveling, and just generally exploring the world. And I'm really looking forward to this time.
Wonderful. I love the diversity of just kind of the experiences that all of you bring and the industries that you're all in. So this is going to be very exciting, just having those different perspectives on community and building that. So many of us have heard the recent statistic that loneliness is as harmful as smoking 15 cigarettes a day, that it raises cortisol, weakens immunity, and accelerates aging at a cellular level. But science proves that meaningful relationships lower stress, boost oxytocin, and even activates genes that protect against diseases. So, connection is truly medicine. In light of this, we're living in a loneliness epidemic, and it's clearly impacting our health. What opportunities do you see for our community to come together to create small pockets of community locally?
I feel like this one was set up for Emma.
She did a happy dance. Did you see it?
You guys. So the U.S. Surgeon General defines belonging as a fundamental human need, the feeling of deep connection with social groups, physical places, and individual and collective experiences. So when you think of feeling lonely or feeling isolated in your community, the things that I would encourage you to turn to: social groups, number one. That is clubs and activities. Clubs are important because they create regular proximity to similar people. So it's great that you come to an event like this, but on the note of creating moments with these same people beyond just this day is incredibly important. I would encourage you to look up clubs. Fargo-Moorhead has so many cool clubs. There's a birding club just for women. They're called the Larks, if that isn't the cutest thing that you've ever heard of in your entire life. Physical places, so that's clubs, coffee shops, places that you can become a regular. These are generally defined. These are like third spaces. So you have your first space, which is your house, your second space, which is your work, and your third space, in contrast to that, should be a lighthearted environment. So think of libraries, gyms, churches. You want to go where people know your name, and your end goal is to learn others' names as well. So like, who's your barista at Youngblood that you talk to? Is it Lane? Is it Aaron? Is it Kara? You want to know who exists in your community. And then the third one, what do we say? Social groups, physical places, and individual and collective experiences. So this is the farmer's market. This is Chris Kindle Market. This is going to an event at Brewhalla, or maybe a concert at the aquarium. But you want to be in community, celebrating with other people who maybe have a shared interest, like local food or live music. So those are the 3 core components I would go to when looking to build your kind of like well-rounded grouping of combating social isolation. Did I miss something?
That was very thorough.
Okay.
That was very good.
Perfect. Okay.
Does anyone else want to share?
Do you want more?
That sums it up. Thanks, Emma.
I would say that. So that's a lot of structure, and there's a lot of great ideas. For me, it would be this idea that it doesn't just happen. You really have to put yourself out there, and there's some trial and error. So when I think about over the decades, the different little communities that I built or was a part of, so there's different groups at different gyms, or like the book club that I started, but the first one failed. They were not actually readers. And, but like you had to keep trying and feel like, or like running groups that I would try to create, and then some of them failed, but then some of them stuck. But like there was a lot of trial and error. And now I'm at a life stage at 46 where sometimes young women come up to me, they're like, like I want what you have. Like you have this really good like friend group and board of directors, and you have your, awesome book club, which is full. And and all these things. And there's this idea that it kind of just happened, or that I lucked into it, or that and I'm like, no, like I had to tell the world, this is what I am looking for. And there was all these trial and errors until you find the thing that sticks and works. And so, I mean, that's the thing that I think of, like the journey to get there, and that's worth it. But there was a lot of, ups and downs.
Yeah.
I think to kind of echo off of what Emma had said regarding community and isolation and belonging, for myself and others I know at our organization, we really value volunteering in the community. So getting outside of the office and just, whether it's Folkways or another organization, to just give back of your time, because there's different conversations that will bubble up where if you were volunteering or just doing some sort of team building in the office, you might not get that same belonging or connectiveness. Also, I think for me as a mom, I think if I ever feel like just maybe down or feeling lonely, other moms are probably my same age are feeling that same way. Mm-hmm. So I will shoot my friend a text and be like, hey, do you want to go on a walk today at lunch? Or do you want to get happy hour next week? Or do you want to grab a coffee? So just things like that to just help get myself like out of that rut and get going and get moving again and feeling more like I belong as well and a part of the community.
Yeah. You want to share?
Yeah, I mean, something that came to my mind when I thought of this question was not being in such a hurry to go through life and to move on to the next thing. Because if we linger after soccer practice and talk to the other moms, or after church, instead of leaving right away as soon as the service is over, staying and meeting somebody new, or at your work, taking an actual lunch break and sitting in the break room and talking to your coworker, but not being in such a rush to do, we often miss those opportunities to make a personal connection. And personal connection is such a powerful way to build relationship. I mean, doing something together is great, and that works really well, but also having that personal touch of a conversation and one-on-one or a couple people where you actually personally connect. So not being such a rush to end one thing and start to the next, but being able to take that time for those, maybe it's only 10, 15 minutes, but I sacrifice a few minutes just so that I can actually connect and personally engage with someone.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point of taking that time and taking that extra, okay, I'm not just gonna grab my things and go, but making the eye contact and being like, oh, okay, we can be friends. I was just upstairs this morning and I was chatting with a woman and she said, we were talking about community, and she's like, I'm a single mom, I don't have a lot of friends, I'm here by myself, this is uncomfortable, but I'm doing it. And I feel like that's the energy, right? Just being a little bit uncomfortable, but doing it, to go on those skinny branches and make those new friends and make those new connections. I think that's so powerful. Cool. Thank you, ladies. All right. So why do you think creating community and that sense of belonging is so important in the season we live in, besides the obvious health ramifications?
I don't really understand the nuance of the question, the season we live in. What's that part of the question?
I think that we're all in these different seasons, right? And so we kind of talked about the harvest and kind of the rest. So, the different seasons, right now I'm growing a tiny human. And so that's a really important time of community where I'm older. And so all of my friends have older kids. And so it's I have to look for new community. I'm seeing pregnant people and people with babies. I'm okay, I see you guys over there. And so I think it's relating to the season that you're in and relating to the season where you're at, the importance of community at those different times of seasons.
I think it comes back to some of the intentionality. Melanie was talking about earlier about being still and hearing your thoughts, and I empathize or resonate with what she was saying about I'm not good at that, constantly in motion, constantly going, and then you miss the signals and the signs and the cues of what you need in that season. And so the idea of the type of community you need, what community you need is going to evolve. But you've got to be paying attention. You've got to be asking yourself these questions and then going and seeking it out. I think motherhood is a classic example, but also like big career changes. You're shifting industries, you're shifting levels, you're going from an individual contributor to a manager. Right now, my 13 and 15-year-old became teens overnight and got cell phones. And I am just drowning in like, oh my God, what just happened and I don't know how to parent this. But I quickly went through my speed dial and picked out all the moms who have recently raised successful teens, and those coffee dates got scheduled real quick. So being intentional and aware and then curating that community for that need.
I think too, with today, there's just a lot of uncertainty in the world, and whether that's societal divides or just the different work environments that we're all in, whether virtual or in office or hybrid. Also, just the world we live in, I guess. And I think that when there's so much uncertainty and hopelessness, perhaps, that's why it's so incredible to be able to be a part of the community in whatever way that looks for you, and to bring whatever asset you feel is I feel like all of us were put on earth for a reason. And so I just think that it's just really important to make sure that everyone around you belongs, and that you find your tribe, as everyone's been saying, to help get you through life, because it does take a village to raise kids. And I'm not to the cell phone stage yet, so I'll have to get your number and we can debrief. But I think just finding your tribe is really important too. So.
I think the important thing too is to surround yourself with people that are in a different season. So those who have done things before you that you hope to do, and those behind you who are looking towards you for support. I listened to a really good podcast recently on building community, and the gal doing the podcast called out the fact that we don't ask for help enough. And you don't build trust in community if you don't ask others for help. And she commented on her parents' neighborhood. So a part of like building community is like first and foremost your place. So who lives around you that maybe you can relate to. I would encourage you to do, because it's easier to have access to people who physically live closer to you. But she called out the fact that her mom asks her neighbor for a cup of flour, and like, yeah, sure, she could go to Hornbacher's and buy a bag of flour, but then she fully voids the fact that she had the chance to connect with her neighbor and talk to them about how their day was going. So I would encourage you in building community to ask for help, because generally we love being helpful, but we have this weird sense of pride that prohibits us from connecting with other people. So when you think of that social group, that's a huge factor to, I think, put your ego aside and ask other people for support. And obviously something that you could do, but is more beneficial to have the connection between the individual that you asked for. So.
Another thought that came to my mind in this question was really just, why not now? In this season, like, start now, because we have become more and more lonely, more and more isolated. And the sooner we start taking steps to do it, we're going to find ourselves in a different place. Building community, as Jenny shared earlier, it's a process and it takes time. And so think about a year from now, where do I want to be? 5 years from now, what kind of community, people, connections do I want? And I can start that even today. And maybe you've made connections during this time, even with new people, or you'll be inspired to meet someone new. But why not now in this season? Start today, because we're seeing the effects of our isolation and disconnection. And it's been continuing to get worse and worse and worse. And so the encouragement is to start now, because why wait? There's really no benefit in waiting other than more negative repercussions, which we don't want.
Absolutely. I love what you said, Jenny. You're going through, life kind of serves this problem, this cell phone teenage problem. And you say, who can I call on who's gone through this? Who's been through this season? Who's done this? And how can they support me and share their wisdom with me? And how powerful is that? How often do we get served things in life and we just kind of are like, okay, I'm just gonna go through it. It's gonna be fine. But if we could call on community that has gone through that, whether it's, business, home life, kids, husbands, whoever, to be able to say, I'm really struggling right now. And so, but on the other end, if you don't call on that person, you're keeping that feeling of, oh, I helped my friend through this from them.
I'm laughing. I feel like Emma has insider information or something. My closest gal pal tribe that I go to for everything, one of their biggest complaints about me, there's plenty, but the top is I don't tell them about until after the fact, after I've solved it, like when I'm in the bottom of the pit. And then, then we go for a walk a week later. I'm like, oh my God, last week was awful. This is like what I went through. This is whatever. And they are ticked. And I'm thinking like, well, you were busy and you have a lot and and they feel like I just robbed them of an opportunity and it's not like a real friendship so anyway, +1 to that and that and that.
Yeah, great. You did, right? If you could, how good do you feel about yourself when you help a friend navigate through something really tricky and you could say, wow, we got through it together. And then you almost have buy-in and you're like, what happened? How are we doing? Like, that is so powerful. And that creates those stronger bonds. Yeah, awesome. So looking at this charismatic, successful panel, you would never think that maybe they didn't belong. But I would love to know if there has ever been a time in your life where you felt like you were on the outside of a group looking in, and how did you handle and shift the narrative?
Oh, I can start. I've been going last. I'll go first this time. The example of that came to my mind was when I was in my teenage years at my youth group. I thought I didn't belong there. I felt like I was an outsider looking in, and I would show up, and I just felt awkward the whole time. And somewhere along the line, it occurred to me, why is this just about me? Like, me fitting in. Why am I making that such a big aspect to this situation? And I shifted that to say, what about them? And I made it a mindset to get to know the people I was around, to ask them their stories. And it wasn't about me. It had to be about them. And setting myself aside, it was amazing to see the shift I experienced in the community. I got included and a part of things, not because of me, but because they felt safe with me. They felt like we could be friends or hang out. And the intention of, I care about you, really changed the dynamic for me, even though I was concerned about me, focusing on them and really desiring to make every connection life-giving was super powerful for me.
I think that we all experience, I feel like, that feeling of uncomfortable loneliness, or I don't belong here. And I know when I first started in my position and there was very established leaders in the room, and I kind of questioned what value can I even bring to this conversation? But what was really important for me and kind of switched my mindset as well was I was chosen for this role for a reason, and that they believe in me, and kind of switching my mind of what value can I bring. So just asking more questions. Like, I did not come into the room being a subject matter expert, and they didn't expect that either. But I knew that I had the drive and the resources to be able to get there. I just needed to ask the right questions, seek out mentorship. I started, connecting with other like-minded people in the community, making sure that I was present at different events that was on a topic that I wanted to grow in, either personally or professionally. And I think that really helped me grow in my role. And again, just really understanding you do have a seat here, Amber, because they believe in you, and you need to believe in yourself as well. So.
The first thing that comes to mind is anything that had to do with athletics before the age of 28. I really felt out of place. But no, what the real answer I can think of is I spent majority of my career at Microsoft. I started as an intern at Great Plains Software in the year 2000. And I've been at Microsoft my entire career, other than I took a short break in 2018 And I took a civic leave of absence, and I went to work for North Dakota Governor Burgum. And because it, for a lot of reasons, seemed like just a great opportunity to try something different, took a huge risk. And what I ended up doing was I agreed to help First Lady Catherine Burgum start her platform around addiction and recovery. It was called Recovery Reinvented. We had no idea what it was going to be. There was no plan. There was nothing. And I agreed to come in and help figure out what could we do now that we had this like asset in the state, a First Lady willing to talk about addiction recovery. The goal was to eliminate the stigma of addiction. We were creating a community around this topic, which Amber's Foundation was one of the first to help fund with some philanthropic dollars, which was great. And I was a total fish out of water. I had no experience with addiction and recovery. To everybody that I was going to work with, I think I appeared as just a super white, privileged person from Fargo, and you're going out to Western North Dakota, and sometimes there's a lot of biases from east to west in North Dakota. I literally knew nothing, and I'm the one that's going to try to convince these people to listen, to take action, to build this community. It sounds crazy, and so I had no trauma. They're never going to believe me. They thought I had never been through anything hard. I'd never been through trauma. So how could I ever get them to trust me, to let me try to help? It was the most imposter syndrome, I will ever have in my life. And I was 40 years old with a really successful career at Microsoft, doubting everything. But my point was, I just had to lean into that and show up. And what the number one thing I did is I showed up again and again and again until they believed I'm not going away. I'm here for this. I mean it. And number two is I listened and I asked questions and I demonstrated the fact that I am willing to learn. I want to learn from you. I want to help. Let me use the skills and resources and talents that I have that are very different to help elevate your story and elevate the cause and elevate the whatever. And the persistence, it took a long time to earn that trust. The persistence paid off tenfold. It was the most beautiful experience of my career thus far. And so being out of place in a community, it is possible to eventually create the space, create the community.
I had two friends in college, literally two of them. One of them was my boyfriend, which does not count. And it was super isolating. So I'm from Fargo, but I went to school in Greeley, Colorado, which is 800 miles away. I was a super overachiever in high school and moved and decided that I was going to make so many friends, and I made no friends. And that was awful, but I think it made me a lot funnier. So
that's a thing.
Yeah, that was great. That's a great bonus. I just couldn't find people that I really vibed with, and there was a big party scene, and I was like, well, I'm not good at that. My fear. And then I finally, again, what's wrong with me mindset. My dad loves to say, MMA, nobody cares as much as you do. You're obviously the only one thinking about yourself in that way. So in the words of Ian McIntyre, if you need a little bit of that today when you're talking to people, nobody cares about your dress or your hair or your eyelashes as much as you do. So put that aside. Don't panic about it. And then COVID happened, and all these friends that I started to make when I put my ego aside, I didn't get to be friends with because the world shut down. And I moved back to Fargo because I graduated. And I took all of that chaotic energy that I had, and I would just get coffee with people my age and ask them to be my friend. So I had this pitch that I practiced in my head, and I would get coffee with somebody that I was like, they seem cool, and I want to be their friends. I moved back to Fargo. All of my friends moved away. I am just going to be like, okay, so hear me out. What if there's a group of 10 of us, and we get a happy hour once a month, and we all talk about, I did Under the Ruse where I wanted more young people to start businesses. And so I would get all these young people to hang out and be like, we're going to develop an air of entrepreneurship. And then the disguise worked, and we all just became friends. And we had a standing calendar invite. And let me tell you what, I had to be the one to make the calendar invite every single month. Nobody else made the calendar invite. I did it, but everybody showed up. And that was the crazy thing. It was very uncomfortable, and I was like, I'm not cool enough to do this. I haven't had friends for the last 4 years. but I'm gonna put myself in the ego harm's way and just be the one to do it, and it totally paid off. And they're some of my best friends, and they all became friends with each other. But I think it worked because it was regular, and when I did one event, I would sit everybody down and I would schedule the next one right there, and we had proximity to one another. So forced friendships work. Just put people on a Google Calendar invite is my advice.
Yeah.
Sometimes they show up, and if they don't, then you took the hint. I got the hint.
Do you hear that? Do you hear that, people? Forced calendar invites.
Yeah.
The theme that I'm kind of hearing from all of you is like bravery, like being courageous, right? And so, making those even under the guise of like, we're going to be entrepreneurs, but I actually just want to be friends with you. But how can you be courageous? Who is super like network? Like, this is so easy. Like, making new friends is like the easiest thing ever. Who's like that? Is there anybody in this room? It's hard. But see, everybody feels the same way. And so, but everyone wants to connect. Everyone wants to build those friendships, to expand their social circles. And it's tricky for everyone, It's so easy to look at other people and be like, oh, for them, it's so easy. It's tricky for them too. And I think being courageous and being bold and being brave, I think that's the ticket, ladies. So speaking of being courageous, when networking can be cringe, who thinks networking can be cringe? It can be so cringe sometimes, especially if you're at like a really, I don't know, I feel like the really like stuffy, fancy networking things when you're like, hello, what is your, those can be tough. So when networking can be cringe, what or how do you engage in authentic conversation and community building? And so we're talking to all you introverts. I feel like the extroverts can kind of be like, okay, hello, this is me. But so speaking to those introverts and extroverts alike, how do you engage in that authentic conversation and community building?
For the extroverts, I would say to slow down. I know. Yes, you probably want to reach every single person in the room, but sometimes it's also beneficial to slow down and just create those intentional conversations and ask the right questions. Because I think someone had said it prior that trust and relationship building takes time. And to me, networking, I want to go deeper and establish a relationship that's going to go past that said day. And so that's my advice for the extroverts. And I'd say for the introverts, have those maybe elevator questions in your mind that you feel comfortable when you do get put in a spot for networking that you can just reference in your mind to make it less maybe awkward for yourself. And then also, it's okay to take a break. If you're like in a room of people like this and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm starting to like feel like I'm gonna throw up, you just go to the bathroom or go outside and come back in when you're feeling better. But I know that can feel overwhelming as well. So that's my advice.
A couple things. I'd encourage like introverts, also find a buddy, especially an extrovert buddy. I mean, I've had friends plenty of times that are like, Jenny, can I go with you to this thing? Or would you introduce me to people? Would you let me, and that's fine, because then, it's a little bit easier that way. The other thing I've told people is practice. I mean, it is a thing. It is a skill. Go into low-risk environments, like super small, casual, informal engagements where you literally are thinking about, I'm just going to go introduce myself to 5 new people, and you practice the uncomfortableness because it is like muscle memory. It gets easier, and you kind of realize, this is all fine. So just like anything else, intention, practice, such and such, and do that. And the other thing I tell people is so the word networking, yes, everybody cringes because it gets this slimy, bad reputation. Just, reframe it. It's relationship building. Who doesn't can't appreciate building a relationship, even if it's, not super easy. And you can do it authentically. It doesn't have to be slimy. I mean, I will show up just like this. And sometimes the way I keep it real for myself or keep it authentic is I I won't go super formal, trying to follow the protocols. I'll like flat out tell people like, gosh, I'm sorry. I've met so many, I've already forgotten your name and we're 30 seconds into the conversation. And that instead of feeling awkward about it, like I just put it out there. And then automatically they see that I'm real and authentic because everybody else is thinking the same thing. And then they can let their guard down. They feel more comfortable. Or I will make a joke about how awkward this whole networking thing is. And so I would encourage you, you can do it authentically. It doesn't have to be the way it's portrayed in the movies and whatnot.
One thing I often tell myself is you never know who you're going to meet and how that connection is going to come in handy later. You think about your closest friends, or maybe your spouse. How did you meet them? Sometimes it's the most random, somebody on the bus, or you bumped into each other at the water fountain, or through a mutual friend that just happened to be, they happened to be there that day. But kind of the mindset of you never know who that person might become in your life. And that feels really powerful for me because it's not, sometimes it's like, well, I don't know if I'm gonna have a long-term relationship with this person. It could be a one-time conversation. And that might be true, but it might turn into a long-term friendship or a business connection, or you lose your job and they can connect you. You just never know where a connection can happen. And so that it's an opportunity. I like to think of it as an opportunity, and you just never know where that relationship will take you. And you wouldn't have had that if you hadn't taken that step to introduce yourself or say, hello, nice to meet you. Yeah.
This is my formal apology to everybody in this room that I've ever met. My family grills me for asking 1,000 questions because I love to be like, and where do you work? And what do you do? And what do you enjoy? And are you from Fargo? And where did you go to school? Okay. I wouldn't advise doing that, although it is very interesting and you learn a lot of information in a short period of time. I think something that I've been personally working on is asking more personal questions. I found when I started dating my boyfriend, a lot of those friends that I had made in my group previous were all people that I knew through work. And so we would talk a lot about work. But then when it came to knowing personal information about people, I felt like there were things that were off limits. I wasn't good at discussing them. And so asking people things of like, my go-to question, I need to figure out a less formal way of saying this, but is what kind of content are you digesting right now?
Yeah, you do need to figure out better.
Right? Isn't it so bad? But in my brain, I'm like, it covers...
I like the sentiment. I like the sentiment.
It's like books, podcasts, movies. Like, I'm not trying to be like, what book are you reading right now? Because I don't want to box somebody into reading books. That takes a lot of time. I get it. And so content, are you digesting?
She would not be in my book club.
No, exactly. So if anybody has tips and tricks on how to make that sound cooler, I would greatly accept it. But I think understanding, like, really at the end of the day, you're all just people, and they're there because they're also people, and people are inherently interesting. So turning it into less of a, oh my gosh, what if you think I'm weird? And more of, okay, what about you is really interesting. Like, I'm excited to meet you as a person. Back to that ego. Not even ego, just like being self-conscious,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I love it so much. I'm officially retiring networking, and it's going to be only relationship building. Like, just reframing that, I'm like, yeah, that sounds really good. That feels good to me. Wonderful. Well, we have a couple minutes. And so I would actually just love to hear from you. If there's something that we haven't covered or we haven't discussed that you feel like is really pertinent to building that community, to getting, into those juicy places.
There's a documentary. It's called Join or Die. It is about the loneliness epidemic in the US. The reason that you don't connect with people is because of your cell phones and your television. This is not a new problem. Since 2003, people have been spending less and less and less times in their community. And that is because of the relationship that people had with television. And now you think of the introduction of social media, and it is clearly much worse. There's a certain type of dopamine that is only released in your brain when you make eye contact with people. And as much as digital communities are great, you don't get that dopamine through your cell phone. So I would encourage you, if you're like needing a little extra oomph, to join a club, show up to an activity that you maybe would feel uncomfortable doing generally. Watch Join or Die. I know the definition of belonging is very boxes to fill, but sometimes that makes it easier for me personally because it makes it like less of a social anxiety and more of like, okay, I have to do this. It's good for me. It's more of like a prescription in a sense.
Yeah, I love it.
Anyone brave enough to stand up and share, like, what didn't we cover? What did we say up here where you're sitting there like, yeah, but no. Angela.
What if you're new to the community? Here.
She says, what if you're new to the community? Oh, this kind of hurts my heart because I hear sometimes people say that this is a great community if you've lived in it and been in it, but not to come try to join it. And that makes me very sad. So I'm thinking, does anyone else want to jump in while I'm thinking?
I think for me, I'm not originally from here either, and I really took it upon myself. You need to want to, you can't just be in the basement of your home and expect someone to come knock on your door and say, do you want to be my best friend? Although that would be amazing. Maybe Emma, maybe you would do that.
Watch out. Here I come.
But I feel like for me, I really looked for, there's such great programs, as Emma mentioned, or clubs, getting involved that way. I got really involved with the Chamber. I know the United Way has some really great programs too, both for professional and personal development. So those are things that I just look for. Maybe Jenny, now that sparked ideas in your mind.
Tons. All the original things I said still stand. Intentionality, reflecting on what you need. I also believe in a principle of put it out in the universe. Say it out loud. So every one of those networking interactions, I'd say, you know what, quite frankly, I'm brand new to the community and I don't know how to make friends here and I want community, so what advice do you have for me? That will open 1,000 doors and you put it out there, I wholly believe the world will respond.
The only note to add to that, so we always joke the farmers market is a great on-ramp into community. So those collective experiences that you can show up and participate are incredibly important. I mean, we have this summer we're introducing clubs to the farmers market, not like, but like the FM Flyers Club and the Fine Arts Club. I often joke with my boyfriend, I'm like, we have old people hobbies, but we just like play cards at the bar. And that's not old people hobbies, it's hobbies that are derived from when people connected with one another, not via cell phone. And I think that clubs are generally perceived as a space for seniors, but shift the narrative. Go show up at the Fine Arts Club. You know how stoked they'd be? They literally have a problem where their members are dying, you guys. Like, they don't have enough members to replenish the amount of people that should be in the club to keep the club alive. They have the cutest little clubhouse on the edge of Island Park. It's so precious. But, like, their membership is literally dying. So there are spaces for us to come together. You just have to show. And clubs are great because you come and participate and you, like, it gives you an excuse to show up week after week or like each month, and you're not tied to it. I mean, if you do a volleyball league for like a season, that's great, you know? So come to the farmers market, solve all problems, right?
Everyone knows that.
Yeah, come on.
A nice lady, raise your hand. Can we address it?
Okay.
Oh, that's okay. I can wait.
I'm not in charge.
How do you motivate an introvert to become more extroverted if they're happy in their space of being an introvert, but yet they are in a profession where they need to bring that out of them? How do you bring that out of somebody?
All right, I can try to answer that. I think one of the things, I mean, I see a lot of social anxiety as a mental health counselor. That's one of the things that I will help people with. And thinking about what is it that I really want? You know, is it I really want connection? I want to spur this, the people that I work with, I want to spur them on. Is it that I want to instill passion or I want to meet new people? Like, what is it that I really want? And how are these connections going to help me get there? That it feels like there's a true purpose, that it feels like it's an on-ramp to something of value for me. Because, yeah, it feels good just to stay at home and keep watching Netflix or scroll on my phone. But ultimately, what do I want on a really deep level, on a heart level, on a soul level? And it's amazing how using that as motivation can kind of propel us to take another step forward. Because those are the things that we ultimately do really care about. And when we're passionate, it gives us a little dose of courage, I think, sometimes.
Yeah. And I think with those introverts too, they want that like intimate, juicy connection, right? And so if you can like refocus on like, I'm just gonna have like 1 or 2 really good, close connections at this versus try to talk to 15 people, that kind of makes it a little more attainable too. So thank you, lovely panel. This was so incredible to dive into just the importance of community and belonging. And we know about this epidemic of loneliness. And I think that if we could really take to heart that the prescription that we should all be taking is communities.
Thank you so much for joining us in our mission to remind women of who they are, how to professionalize their strengths, and step into their purpose. To learn more about She Overcomes and our Becoming Bold cohorts, you can go to sheovercomes.co. To learn more about our virtual community, the Ezer Collective, go to ezer.disco.co. And finally, to learn more about my book, Irreverent, a memoir of reckless hope, unexpected love, and finding my voice, you can find that at melaniemichelle.co/books. Until next time, Overcomer, it's time for you to find your purpose, chase it with courage, and step into your unique gifts. Thank you.